All right. Hey, folks. Jim Pankey here. Up here above me, I've got Jody, and down below here, I've got Eli Gilbert. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to this first go-round here. We'll give folks a chance to make sure that they're coming in and see where everybody is. So, should be live. Yeah, stop touching your face, Jim.
Careful, everybody.
Oh, wow. That's a delayed.
Yeah, it should be a little bit delayed. So, yeah,
I had it on my iPad over here, and it's...
yeah. All right. Well, we're getting some folks in, so it looks like we're live. Got 93 watching. Hey, everybody. All right.
How's everybody doing?
All right, we got to 105. I want to make the big thing go away.
Okay.
And hide that. Boom. Boom.
I recognize some names. Hey, Tyler, how's it going?
All right. Good deal, y'all. Hey, I'm going to get over here so I can watch both screens. I guess I'm the official moderator, but not really. This really not an interview or anything like that. We're just kind of hanging out and hoping for the best. Y'all okay with that screen format, or do we want to go? I mean, I think this way, if somebody shows some banjo, it'll probably work.
Yeah, we
work
can
best.
Make that work.
Yeah.
Don't forget me, Eli. Yeah, Josh, I wouldn't forget about you. Josh is a regular on the on my channel.
Very cool.
Hang on. Smokey. Cat lives.
There's a reason my door's closed.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
The good ones up here asleep here on top of the couch right there.
Oh yeah, I got one to sleep too.
Yeah. But the bad one he's on the prowl, so could be crazy. Hey, Martin. Hey, glad I can help. Are we going to pick? Well, we'll probably pick, but we won't be able to play together due to the fact that there's this lag between everything. By the time I say it, then it 2 seconds later, Eli will hear it, and then Jody will hear it. So, yeah. So
not to mention the lag from the online thing too. Yeah, not just the regular lag. There's
yeah. Yeah. So it would be really difficult, but yeah, we can. Hey, Martin. Yeah. All of my overalls are too big, man. I've lost right at 50 pounds, and I'm going to either have to buy more or gain the weight back. So I guess I need to buy more.
Which one's cheaper there?
Yeah. Let's see. What about dueling banjos? 3-way dueling banjos. Boy, how did I know that was coming?
What a surprise. What a surprise.
Oh. Oh, no. Dance. No dancing. I kicked him out. Oh, the bow ties. No bow ties today. Sorry. A more comfy chair. Oh, this one's pretty good. It does okay. I think Jim and them, this was part of the April Fool's trick, was they were going to do a workshop and get me in here and then just desert me. This is part of the game here. Well, yes, Jim just wrote me and said he just got booted, so he will be back here shortly. Let's see if we can get them back in here. Wow, I'm the only one that is allowed to stay this time, it looks like. Jim and Eli both gone. I promise this was not part of the show here. Maybe we can get them back in here. In the meantime, wow. Hold on a second. Oh, wow.
Hey,
Everybody's gone except Jim. It was one, I think they took out Jim and then you and then finally me.
wow.
And now we have given Jim the boot. We've taken over his room.
Jeez. I honestly don't even know how how do we get back in? Did you let me back in?
No, I got kicked out and then I logged back out and then logged back in.
Oh, this is great.
And then somebody's got to be in charge because I was backstage.
Hmm.
There he is.
Hey,
Master.
look at that.
Hey, I'm back. I don't know what happened, man. StreamYard just decided to decide that we didn't need to be here. So
Someone mentioned doing banjos and it just
it's Jody's fault. It was Eli's fault. No, it's probably, I don't know.
I kind of like being on this side.
Yeah, it's rearranged everything.
Well, there you go.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, we're back. Hopefully we can stay back. All right, folks. I mean, we're kind of open here. We have no plan. We said, y'all want to, so when I approached Jody and Eli about doing this, I said, hey, y'all want to do this combined live stream? And they're both like, yeah. And I said, well, when do we want to do it? And we're like, well, Wednesday's good. And I said, well, what do we want to talk about? They said, yeah, whatever. So, I don't think there's a why. We're just here. Yeah, Steven, this is the Brady Bunch. See, I can look up at both of them. Yeah, Jody, what banjo have you got today?
I've got both of them sitting here. I've got the Gibson, of course, and then I have the Romero over here. Look at this, two-handed. This one is probably the more unusual one. This one was made by Jason Romero, 12-inch open back, custom-made banjo. So I do a lot of, I don't play much call hammer, but I do a lot of like finger style and maybe jazz and some things on it. And then, of course, this is just a Gibson Earl Scruggs model. With the it's all stock, nothing in it is different. But yeah.
What year is the Earl Scruggs model? Do you know what year that one is?
2004. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those models that I feel like, especially that 2000s around that time, they're all great. I've liked all of those ones that I've played.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I think it's one of the ones with the quote mystery ring in it or so.
Okay.
I think that's what the deal is. I don't know. I'm not much into that, but I think that's what it is. I really like it now. I'll be honest, when I first got it, it was not my favorite banjo. It was really bright and kind of harsh sounding, but it's warmed up and settled in. So, yeah. So
that's very cool.
Any other? What do we think about the Deering seat era? I remember when those came out. I had a couple of students that got them back in the 90s, and they were just super plain Jane mahogany, had dot inlays. They were pretty boring looking, but now they look really good. They got the nicer inlays, and I think it's probably still kind of the same pot assembly as they always were, but yeah, I think they're pretty nice. I like the inlays on the new ones for sure. Here's a good one. What got you guys into playing the banjo? Eli, you're top left. You go first.
Yeah, sure. I got into banjo kind of late for other stuff. I was playing guitar for a while, like 10 years or so before I got into banjo, but my dad always played guitar, and I think it was 20 or so. He's been playing guitar and played folk music and everything, and he wanted to go to a bluegrass festival, which I didn't know anything about, and so I said, fine, yeah, great. It's funny, I'd listened to the Punch Brothers and Noah Kelly and Bela Fleck a bunch before I played the banjo at all, just because it's great music, but I hadn't heard Earl Scruggs or J.D. Crowe or anything. But I went to the Thomas Point Beach Bluegrass Festival, which is up in Maine where I live, and saw a bunch of really great bands. I saw J.D. Crowe, saw Seldom Seen, saw a bunch of really great banjo players that I didn't know anything about, and I don't remember what it sounded like, and I wish I could go back and see J.D. Crowe again and all that. But yeah, that was the first time I heard real bluegrass, and thought, yeah, maybe I'll pick up a banjo, and that'll be kind of a side hobby or something. And yeah, about 10 years later, and so the only thing I do now. So
I remember when Jody was a kid, but who got you started, Jody, or how did you get started?
Man, my story is a bit unusual. I started off on guitar as well when I was 13 years old, and I was like a typical teenager. I was kind of into hard rock and even some metal, and I got into blues at one point. I was playing a lot of electric guitar, and this is how I got into the banjo, though. My grandfather, he got kind of up in age. He was, I think, maybe around 80 or so, and I became very close friends with my grandfather, and we would go places. I'd take him out on the weekends, and we'd go places. And we had this local flea market that we would go to on the weekends just to kind of hang out and see what was all going on. And so we all went up there one day, and I was over there looking at LPs like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Albert King LPs, and I was just like going through the records trying to find some music. And my grandfather, he came and got me, and he said, "Come down here and listen to this old guy play the banjo." And I was a teenager, and I'll be honest, I didn't care anything about hearing a banjo. You know, I wanted to hear like Metallica and hard rock. So I went down there, and there was this old guy named Will Hogshead, and he was playing the banjo on a booth at a flea market. And he had banjos for sale, like really cheap K banjos. And my grandfather, I already played guitar. He said, "Well, go over there and strum a little on that banjo, and if you can make some sounds come out of it, I'll buy it for you." And here I am thinking, I don't know what to do with this thing. I didn't grow up around bluegrass, even though I'm from the South. I didn't really know anything about bluegrass at all. So, anyways, make a long story short, I ended up getting that banjo. And that is how I got into banjo. My grandfather always wanted to play when he was a kid, and he just never did. And so that is how it kind of got transferred to me, so to speak. And I got into it that way, and I started going to jams and stuff. It became a very cool social event as well. Made a lot of friends.
For me, I was 13 or 14 too, and we had a mandolin. Well, we had various instruments at home. We had mandolin, a guitar, and a banjo. And the mandolin was little, so I started out on it. It was small. How hard could that be? And and then moved from it to guitar. And then so that was the summer. And by Christmas, Mom and Dad had got me an inexpensive banjo to start on, and at that point it was like, dang, I guess they spent money on an instrument for me. I should learn it. And so, but I after playing, from the summer guitar and mandolin, banjo got started. But even as a little bitty kid, I loved the banjo. There's old 8mm home movies of me imitating Grandpa Jones when I was just a toddler, So yeah, always interested. Let's see other questions here. We're 11 people away from 200. Josh, thanks for keeping track of that, man. 3 fingers on your left hand. I've had several students through the years that's had just limited fingers, but there's a guy who lives right across the mountain here from me, Barry Abernathy. He doesn't have fingers hardly at all. I mean, if y'all ever seen Group Mountain Heart, and Barry used to play with Doyle Lawson too, but he's got just a thumb and knuckles basically.
Yeah, it's
and
true,
he
yeah.
plays over the top, and so. Man, there's no excuses on number of fingers. You can get her done.
Sounds great.
I mean, Barry used to. I had a little shop and studio here that I taught out of, and he would stop. Him and Owen Saunders would stop there whenever they were going to meet Doyle, and I've seen Barry play the mandolin. With just.
Oh wow!
I mean, so yeah, so yeah, fingers are optional. Monroe or Stanley? Well, when I was learning to play, my dad had records, and we had Flat and Scruggs records, and then we had some Stanley Brothers stuff, and those were the two. I didn't get into Monroe until I was, already kind of playing banjos. So for me, it was Flat and Scruggs and Stanley Brothers. Monroe kind of came later for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, Flat Scruggs was for me of the original, first generation stuff is probably I've gotten most out of Flat and Scruggs. Stanley Brothers, Bill Monroe less so, but it's tough. There's so much good Monroe stuff out there. But given the option, it's really hard for me to listen to someone other than Earl from that time period. I mean, there's obviously recordings with Monroe and Earl. There's not enough, but there's some. But if I'm going to listen to something from that around that time, it's probably just going to be Flat and Scruggs or something like that.
I think as banjo players, I think Jody probably agreed too. As banjo players, we tend to think that bluegrass didn't exist without Earl, and so that's kind of where we go. Hey Jody, Severin just asked a question. Maybe you tackle it. He says, "What can I do when I want to play faster? How do you play faster?"
You play faster.
Oh, darn.
You just keep, this is a question that a lot of my students, I tell them, and man, it's sometimes like, it's one of those things for me that unfortunately is kind of a blur as far as like how I learned how to play faster. And I started playing with a group when I was about 15 or 16, and our mandolin player, he just played everything way too fast. And so every Friday night, it was literally just trying to keep up as best as I could. And just that act of just trying to keep up with him all the time kind of drove me to playing faster. So, I have certain regiments that I'll give students and say, here, work with a metronome and let's get like an exact reading on how fast you can say, do this roll, or maybe even these 2 bars. I always tell them it's like running a mile. Like you want to get an exact number. This is as fast as I can play. That way, you know where you're at. But at the same time, I didn't really learn that way. I learned by trying to keep up with people at jams or trying to keep up with the recording, just, basically forcing myself to keep up. So it's a little different, I think.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it was a matter of, finding recordings that were quick. I remember it's the world's greatest bluegrass show. I had it on vinyl, and it was J.D. Crowe and the New South, Seldom Seen, and Country Gentleman, I think. It was a album, and JD plays Train 45 on that album, and I think it's like 190 beats a minute. I mean, it is scorching, and I just try to play along. And so, you want to play faster, just play faster. Hey, Chuck Short just asked, is Steve Martin a credible banjo player, or is he just popular because he's just Steve Martin? Steve's a good player. I had the album back in the 70s, Steve Martin Brothers, and it had banjo on one side and comedy on the other. So yeah, I've always known Steve. Talk a little about anchor fingers on your right hand. Let's talk about that. There's 3 of us here. I bet we got 3 different opinions. What do you do?
Well, I have done all 3 options for extended periods of time, but I've settled on just the ring finger. I just put the ring finger on the head, but I have experimented with and spent a decent amount of time doing all 3. And the other 2 just didn't seem to do it for me. I tried. I wanted to be like Earl, but it just
Yeah. What about you, Jody?
Oh man, when I was learning how to play, I went through this phase where I had favorite players, and now I look back and it's kind of silly, honestly, because I literally would look at their hand and just try to replicate it. Like, I was really into Alan Shelton, and I would literally try to make my hand look exactly like his, or I would, somebody else's. But it's kind of ironic that Eli said that, because I actually post just my ring finger most of the time, but at the same time, I do sometimes post both fingers. The guy that taught me how to play banjo, Dan Atchison, he just used his ring finger. And I think that was the first time I ever saw somebody do that. And that felt natural to me, whereas a lot of times people will just post their pinky. And, man, that is just terrible for me. I can't play like that at all. So,
yeah,
I think whatever feels best.
And see me, it's all pinky.
Yeah,
I started out, when I started out, I didn't anger anything because I didn't know any better, and somebody says, hey, you got to put your fingers on the head like Earl does. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I started trying to put both ring and pinky down. I worked for that for a while. And then eventually I just wound up with just my pinky. And it's just what's comfortable. And, as long as you're getting good tone and, you're not doing anything crazy, I think it's just fine.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you can find examples of anybody doing any number of things that sounds amazing. I mean, think about Sammy Sheeler. He anchors with just his little finger on the actual bridge, which you would never really recommend. But if I could sound like Sammy Sheeler, that'd be great. Or you can find, somebody else. There's somebody out there making amazing music on the banjo that does all the different versions of things you can do with your hands, and it's people like that. It's they were searching for the sound that they wanted. It wasn't necessarily just to sound like one person or another. They did what worked for them, and it worked out. So as long as you keep searching for that sound that you like, I think that you can make a lot of different things work.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess my advice to students, on that is, you can find an example of people, like that rest their finger on the banjo bridge. And it's like Sammy Sheeler puts his finger on the bridge, and that works for him. But, is that the thing that's going to work for you? Probably not.
I wouldn't start there.
That may not work. That may not work for you. People share Dave Hum's videos all the time where he doesn't anchor anything and say, Dave doesn't anchor. Why should I? Well, Dave's the exception. You're probably not going to be the exception. So, try to keep that in mind when you're, when you're thinking about this stuff. Let's see. You can you definitely put your finger on the bridge if you want more compression. That's for sure. Yeah, Bill, ring finger wants to move with my hand. Yeah, mine does too now. I tell people, I have 3 fingers, I got my index, these 2 work together, and then my pinky. Yeah, that's pretty normal. How often do you change strings? Not often enough.
Definitely not often enough.
Depends how much money.
It depends on how much I'm playing. I probably change strings now every couple of months. I don't change. When I was playing, all the time with the Ramblers, I was probably changing them every couple of weeks. Depends on if I was playing any gigs outside. You play out in the humidity and stuff, strings just shot. What about you, Eli?
I'm pretty extreme. I'm every week.
Really?
Yeah, and if it's every week, and if I play let's say I play if I'm playing background music, if I'm at a bar or something, I don't need to change strings for that. But if I'm playing like a festival one day and a festival the next day, it's going to be 2 different sets of strings for each
change them
thing. Yeah, but I think it's it's some people, like I feel like I get my sound when the strings are new.
Right.
But I know some people that hate the new sound and they can't wait to wear them out. So it gets to it because that's what works for them too. I've seen both sides of that.
Like Ralph Stanley, Ralph only put strings on. He only replaced the broken string.
Wow.
Yeah. If the string broke, he put a string on. That was pretty much his thing. What about you, Jody?
Oh man, I'm kind of, I hate to say it, I don't change them very often. I can go I can literally go 6 months sometimes. Like it can just be whenever I feel like it. But at the same time, I will say this, that like it probably has something to do too. Like Eli, I think if I played outdoors more, that would probably be something that would be at least once a month, because you can really tear up a set of strings, especially here in Georgia, sweating and outdoors.
Yeah.
So I play a lot of inside jobs and, of course, just teaching. So I have went through phases, though, where I was changing them about once every 2 weeks, too. But some of it's just pure laziness. I don't want to change them.
That's fair, yeah.
That's the result.
Yeah. I think that's me at this point. Michael Lane asks, do you anchor harder the faster you play? I know I don't.
Try not to.
Yeah. Anchoring harder is tension. I try to as little tension as possible.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. What other questions? Y'all got tons out here. I'm seeing them. Let's see if I can scroll up and not break anything. Any advice on playing songs in any key? I will start that. When I was a kid, well, I was still in high school. There was, and Jody Jody, do you remember James and Mary Paget? That may be before you, but Mary was this. She has an album, and every time I see Rhonda Vincent use this slogan or this branding, I always think of Mary. But Mary had this album, was the Queen of Bluegrass, and Rhonda Vincent uses that now, and so she was. I played with James and Mary, and Mary, being a woman, she sang in a lot of different keys than I was used to playing in. So we were playing E flat and F and all of these other keys, and so I immediately had to start learning to play, standard bluegrass tunes in other keys. So my advice there is just pick a song in G, and say, hey, can I play Cumberland Gap in the key of C, and sit and noodle with it. And that's so much of what I do is just based on just trial and error, just trying stuff. What about what about y'all?
I think
Jody,
something that's really helpful is if you think about the way you learned how to play in G. If you really think about how that worked, you learned a couple songs. Somebody showed you some songs. Somebody showed you some licks. Somebody said, "Well, here's a lick you can use here." And then I find that when people then move to playing a different key, they don't kind of follow the same process, right? It's somehow different, and it's no different. It's just you kind of have to start from square one, and you have to say, okay, well, I got to learn a song in this key. Someone might have to show me a lick or something. I know I've posted I posted a video about playing out of a D position. I know Jody's just recently posted a video playing out of an open E position. I'm sure, Jim, you've posted stuff in other positions and different keys and stuff. And I find for a lot of people, it just comes down to, they didn't, I don't know if it's for some people, it's watching the video, for some people it's reading the tab, whatever it is. But I think for me, it's always just come down to, well, if I don't know any licks in that key, if I don't know any songs in that key, if I don't know a fiddle tune, or if I don't know, then I got nowhere to start. So I think you really got to dig into some material, because otherwise you're not going to kind of magically just know stuff that works over different chords. If you play in G all the time, when you come across an E or an A or something like that, unless you literally have found material and learned a lick or learned a song or something, it's just going to be a little bit more frustrating to kind of invent your own thing. It's possible, but you might find a path of least resistance and learn the way somebody else played something in that key. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. What do you do, Jody?
Well, one of the things I do, this is a topic that I touch on a lot with my students, because I feel like if I could go back and kind of change the way I learned how to play, this would be something that I would have attacked sooner had I known. Because I'll never forget that moment. Like, I went to a jam and I had learned a song, and I got there and like a lady was singing, let's just say, "Will the circle be unbroken" in D. And I'm like, man, I had rehearsed this break in G, and now I'm completely lost. So the first thing I do, to try to combat that with my students is I'll just take something very simple like I'll Fly Away and have my students learn that song in say 4 or 5 different keys, starting off by just strumming, 1, 4, and 5, thinking just chords, and then maybe even having them play the melody. So I'm a huge fan of like right off the bat practicing songs in different keys, like, and I don't tell them like, you don't have to do like all 12 keys, but like, maybe 4 keys that you would play it in. And, when I was learning how to play jazz guitar and I was learning jazz tunes, my jazz instructor used to just torture me by making me play these really difficult songs in multiple keys. And I found out that really helped my musicianship, across the line. So I'm real big on that, just right off the bat, working through that. But you're right. I mean, you have to know licks too, because it's not just enough to just know the chords. Like you've got to have material words, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of the things when I was learning to play, I kept a little notebook of all these tunes that I was working on. And in the notebook, like John Henry there, I've got G, D, and C. So those were the keys. And so I would go through my list here as I practiced, and write down each key that I had learned that song in. And so like if I learned John Henry in the key of C, then I knew that, I could take those licks and apply them to other tunes. So there's a lot. And as I go through my little book, there's lots of songs like Little Maggie I had written out, and I was practicing it in G and C. So, I started out, and this book would, these are tunes that I was working on in 1977. So,
wow.
That's really cool.
Very cool.
So let's see. What are good starter songs? Oh yeah, somebody just said that Eli's got John Henry lesson in 4 different keys.
There you go.
Good place to start.
Go learn that.
Start, yeah.
What are good starter songs? I always use Cripple Creek. Like if I get a new student, whether it's live or whether you do my online, I teach Cripple Creek. And I don't do it because Earl did it. I do it because there's stuff in Cripple Creek that you're going to use for the rest of your life. What about y'all?
Yeah, I mean Cripple Creek, because it's got slides, it's got hammer-ons, got pull-offs, it's got almost everything you're going to see. Almost every roll, it's got almost everything you'll see and everything else Earl plays. So you might as well just get into it, I think. And you can do versions of it that are a little simpler and work your way into something more complicated. But that's where I've always started for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Jody?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly I'll start a lot with Cripple Creek. It can sometimes depend on the student where I go from there. I've worked through just a very basic version of Doug's tune too. That would be another one that sometimes I give people just using the same roll, like a very, I guess, quote, watered down version a little bit. So I'll use that one because people like it. It's a little bit more swingy. You don't have to play it so fast, like the recording and whatnot. So I do that as well as Cripple Creek.
Let's see what else y'all want to know. Let's see. I know we've missed stuff. Richard Mitchell mentioned Trevor Holder. Trevor took lessons from me. He took lessons from Jody too. And yeah, he's a heck of a picker now.
Yes, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carrying that Reno torch.
Yeah.
Not my fault. I showed him one song.
That's all it took, huh?
Yeah.
Taught the boy follow the leader, and it was all over. It was all over.
Okay.
That's great.
Let's see. Greg Byer asked about that Ralph Stanley lick in How Mountain Girls Can Love. Which I'm not sure which lick. I mean, if it's his role, if you're coming to Ralph Stanley from out of like School of Earl, boy, are you in trouble. So yeah. So Ralph is leading he starts with a hammer, and there's 2 indexes. And there's a forward roll with the indexes on the 4th string. So it's all built on forward rolls, and be real willing to bring your index finger up to the 4th string. I hope that's what you were asking about. But yeah, it's Ralph does a lot of interesting stuff. He will change directions on you where you least expect it to. It's all forward based, and it's all a lot of index finger lead. Ralph will play his melodies with the index finger. One of the little experiments I did when I was really young was like, we all learned Cripple Creek by Earl, but what if Ralph had played Cripple Creek? What if we had all learned Cripple Creek from Ralph? So building that all with that forward roll and hitting those melody notes with the index. Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff.
That's cool, man. That's very cool.
I got Trevor into doing that. Trevor would come back to after a lesson, and he would, we were working on Cumberland Gap at one point, and he came back and he said, how would have Don Reno played that? And I said, I don't know, go home and figure it out. And so he comes back the next week, and he's figured out like this Don Reno version of Cumberland Gap. So nice. Yeah, pretty. Let's
That's
see.
Very cool.
Yeah, Bill, index on thirds and challenge. Yeah, get it up on the 4th. Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions of moving away from tab? Yeah, move away from tab. What?
From there.
Well, I mean, I hate to be, it's the whole Archie Campbell, Doc Campbell thing. Hey, Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. The easiest way to move away from tab is just to put them away. Put them away. Just start listening. I mean, I don't think there's a tapering off to that. You just, at some point, you just have to put them away. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can, if you're a little intentional with it, if you kind of, I think because if sometimes people think moving away from tab has to be cold turkey and that's it, and it could be if you can stand it, if you can handle that, but that's not fun for everyone. So you can try. You could say you can take a tune that but you look at the tab and say, okay, what can I play the first measure? Can I play the first 4 measures without looking? Test yourself a little bit. And you'll get further. Once you can play a whole tune without looking at the tab, it's so much easier to continue on in that fashion. But if you do it bit by bit, then it doesn't have to be too scary,
I'll throw something out there. I got this kind of when I started transcribing just different things from other styles of music, and I got into transcribing a lot of classical music and orchestration stuff, and I started thinking about something I could give students to just kind of get their ears flowing a little bit, and try to use if you're going to use tab, one little assignment that you can do is try to take the tab and use it as an answer key, if you will, and make the effort to try to learn the song using your ear, and then use the tab as kind of a key, as an answer key, and see where you got it wrong or where you got it right. So that sort of thing. Oh, my sound is breaking up.
Yeah, you sound really scratchy there.
I wonder what's causing that.
Bandwidth, I'm betting. I don't know.
It's possible.
Who knows?
Okay.
Let's see. Josh asked about what song has challenged you the most as a professional player, but gave you the most pride when you got it? Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was something that I really thought much about, because typically I don't memorize songs. I think, like, for me, I don't know. As far as challenges go, I mean, there's been stuff that I've worked out, like duet stuff that, maybe where I twin, a part with a mandolin or something, but I don't know if I was particularly proud about any of those. What about you, Eli?
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely times that I've tried to learn something really difficult, and I was happy if I could figure it out. If I spend a lot of time playing Earl and Crow and stuff, but once in a while I'll try to learn some Gnome Pikelny stuff or something, and it's fun. And once I figure it out, then that's cool. But I think in terms of like feeling like I accomplished something, I think just whatever, I don't remember what tune it would have been, but whatever it was that the first time I kind of had, the first time I could kick off a song, I think somebody said, hey, play 9 Pound Hammer. And I could just play the kickoff and everybody came in at the right time. And, I think the first time that happens, I think you kind of feel like, okay, everything's going to be okay. I think I might be able to figure out how to do this. So I don't know what song it was, but I think just being able to kick off a Flat and Scruggs song or something and have it not crash and burn because I screwed it up, whatever song that was.
Yeah. Anything for you, Jody? I mean, you Jody, you do that High Lonesome Mass, but you don't play banjo with that, do you?
Yes, I do. Yes, guitar. I started off playing guitar. Now I've moved to banjo. Yeah.
Was there anything I mean, that being the type of production that it is, was there anything in that was particularly challenging?
I would say the most challenging is you're presented with a very exact kind of, thing to play, but it's not 100% really what they want. They want it to be a little bit more free and ad lib. And so you're still adapting. I mean, I've been playing this piece now for over 3 years and I'm still finding stuff in there that I'm like, nah, I don't really like the way that sounds. I'm going to change it. And just simple things like registers, like, I was playing it low and now moving it high and it sounds better. So, it's and that's something too, is that's it's got some improvisation in it, but also not, you're not completely free to do what you want. It has to be a certain sound.
Michael Wright asked, when should I stop trying to learn and start using it on my own and start using an instructor? I never had an instructor. I'm totally pretty much self-taught. Now I drove to Fair Lawn, New Jersey and spent 3 hours with Tony Trishka once, but I mean, that's the only lesson that I've ever had. So it's not like I had a teacher. And at that point I'd been playing for 15 years, I was just like, hey, show me something new, and so I don't know. For me, when should you stop? I mean, maybe if you feel like that you're not progressing and you feel like that, you need that extra motivation from an instructor, that would be a great time to dive into finding a good teacher, and find a good teacher. Shop around. There's plenty of people out there that will claim to be banjo teachers that are not.
Yeah. Possible, but I think it, on a certain extent, you're also you're always going to be learning on your own. I mean, even if you have a teacher, it's still you, that you still have to be the one that practices. You still have to learn the stuff that they suggest to you. I mean, it's all still, a teacher, even a good teacher, they can't do it for you. They can't learn the tunes for you or anything. So, when you went to go see Tony Trishka, I mean, that seems to me like a good example of what the opportunity for people to do is, you go here and see what this person can offer you, and go here and see what this person can offer you. And it doesn't have to necessarily be that you sign up for somebody's like college of banjo thing. You can, but you can also just go place to place and get a bit, and have your own self-directed, kind of journey, all of this stuff. You never need to stop learning on your own because it's all you anyway, It's
kind of like Trevor, we'll bring him up again, but Trevor took from me, And then he took some lessons from Jody, and Trevor kind of created his own path as far as what he wanted to do and what he was trying to learn on the banjo.
Sure.
And, you know, so, I mean,
I was going to say, I think the kind of the way I kind of helped as an instructor, one of the things I felt like I helped Trevor with is he had a lot of ideas and he was hearing a lot of things and he didn't kind of know in some ways which way to go. And I've experienced that. So I was like, you know, it's kind of like, it's okay to go this way. That's what you like. Just go with it, run with it, you know, and sometimes an instructor can help you with that because I don't know, sometimes you can be doing a lot of things musically and not know which really is the right path for you if you're into a lot of stuff. So an instructor can help you with that, like give you direction, I think. And that's very useful.
Hey, George Patrick asked, how long did it take to go from day one to proficient? I don't know. I still wonder about proficient. You know?
I can't wait to get there.
I will say this. I played in my first banjo contest after I'd been playing about 8 months. You know, I felt like that I knew 2 or 3 songs well enough to get on stage and play in a contest and not just completely fall apart at about 8 months. I didn't place. I didn't even make the finals. But, you know, I've been playing 8 months and could play a few songs. You know, you kind of have to define proficient. You know, you want to go out and play and pick with other people. You can do that pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
What about
it's tough to say what the threshold for any of this, the proficient or anything, because you know I think I'd been playing a year maybe, and then I was in a band that was playing in bars, and I was like, oh, this is great. I must be getting pretty good. And then a couple of years later, I was in a different band and I was playing a bluegrass festival. So I was like, well, that other thing I was doing wasn't even close to how cool this is. Now I must have really figured it out now. And then, so every, you know, you find these milestones along the path that kind of tell you, oh, I'm going somewhere, I'm making some progress. But then you look back and you always kind of say, man, I wish I knew back then what I know now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it doesn't feel like that changes a whole lot. It hasn't changed for me. That's a constant process. I mean, within 2 or 3 years, I guess I could play in a bluegrass band and not make a fool of myself. But the big, you know, like, when am I good enough thing is, you know, I've had to give up on that because that does not seem like a fruitful endeavor to be good enough.
No, see, and like for Jody, I remember Jody, you know, when he was younger, hey, Jody learned, from my perspective, he learned pretty quickly, but I also know that he was putting a lot of hours in practice time as well. So that's something to consider too, you know. So I went from day one to playing in the contest in 8 months, but truthfully, I was practicing 4 or 5 hours a day every day at that point, you know.
I think part of it too, at least how I remember my own kind of progress, is I think I became proficient in certain things, but then there were these other things that just took forever to get me to where I could do them. And, you know, I look back at it now and I'm like, man, I can't believe I was like that. But like, just like an easy one is just hearing basic chord changes. Like, I kind of struggled with that in the beginning. I could take a solo, and it wasn't the speed or anything that I was struggling with. It was just, you know, getting in a jam and people playing stuff that I had never heard and being able to follow along. Like, it just took a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Abrams asks or states, isn't it true that we really have no chance of ever being good? Yes, that's totally true.
Right.
I struggle with that every day. You know, people ask me, they say, Jim, how long have you been playing? And it's almost embarrassing to say, because I should be a lot better than I am, you know, after over 40 years of trying to play the banjos. So, I mean, you define your own good in that respect. I mean, if you're having a good time, you enjoy what you're doing, that's plenty good enough, I think, you know. Let's see. Yeah, Mark Glore says, in the pedal steel world, says it takes you 2 years to suck. I discovered that on pedal steel as well. Yeah, 2 years in, and finally I sucked. So yeah, that's true. I mean, it just takes a while, and there's no trick to any of this. I mean, you just Yeah, Becky, I've been playing 40 years. I know. I ought to be amazing, but I'm not. Yeah, I started playing in 77, so longer than that. Yeah, let's see. Read on the Banjo Hangout that it would take 5 years until you had fun with anybody else. That's bull.
That must have been the certified Banjo Hangout experts then.
Yeah, that was one of those guys. Yeah, it's yeah, you can't go by that for sure, because seriously, I started playing in 77, in 78, which the next year, not even 6 months into playing, I was playing in a band. Albeit we weren't very good, but I was playing in a group, and man, having the time of my life. So yeah, I mean, it was.
One of the things too is, when the first day I had a banjo was one of the most days that I had the most fun playing the banjo probably, and that first year that I played was great because I wasn't trying to be a professional banjo player. I wasn't trying to be good. It was just fun. And then I decided one day, I was like, I want to be good at this. I think I want to be a professional banjo player. And it was less fun for a little while after that, because I had this expectation that I wanted to be a certain thing. And up until that moment, I'd had a lot of fun. And then one day I went to school to study banjo, and it was just so much bluegrass everywhere. I was having so much fun, and I was just learning a lot. I was the worst banjo player at East Tennessee State when I got there by a long shot, and I was having the most fun I'd ever had with the banjo. And then one day it came back, and I said, hey, I think I still want to be really good. And then it stops being fun again. You should not, don't underestimate your ability to ruin it for yourself, because nobody else, none of us are asking you to play the banjo. Trust me, no one's ever going to ask you, hey, can you take up the banjo and get really good at it?
Yeah.
It's only something that you decided you wanted to get into. So you got to be really careful about the way you treat yourself when you think about, where you should be or how long it should take. And, it can be fun. You gotta let it be fun though.
Yeah, I think the thing for me that always come back to with music is there's this very mysterious, magical part about it, in that you put X in and you want to get X out, and you think it's going to be a linear process of, oh, I put this much effort in, I'm going to get this much better. And I used to get so frustrated. I hate to say it was always when I was practicing the most, like I was practicing 6 hours a day or something, and I would get to the gig and not only not sound any better, but really sound worse. And I was like, man, I've been putting in all this effort and I'm not getting any better. And so I realized, just over the years, that you have to kind of accept that and be willing to accept that, hey, I'm practicing and I may have nothing to show for it for a month or two, but eventually it's going to come out in my playing.
Totally.
And so that's the thing with music. You just have to kind of accept in the beginning, I think, a little bit.
So Eli, talk a little about your ETSU experience. I didn't know that you were there. As a matter of fact, I will say back in the 90s, I talked to Jack Tottle there about actually taking a job teaching at ETSU. And so you actually had the whole experience. So what was that like?
It was amazing. It was interesting. It was weird that I ended up there in a way, because I had been playing guitar. I'd been studying jazz guitar for a bunch of years. I was in college for jazz guitar. And I had an injury. Somebody said ETSU, that's East Tennessee State University. I had an injury and I couldn't play guitar, but banjo seemed okay. Banjo, it wasn't too much stress on my hands, so played a lot of banjo. And on a whim, because I didn't really know what I was going to be doing, because I couldn't study guitar anymore for the time being, I applied to East Tennessee State. Didn't even know that it existed before the day I applied. And I think 2 weeks later I was accepted. And then a month later I went to Tennessee for the first time, and just kind of showed up there. I think I'd been playing about a year by then. And
so what year was that?
That was the fall of 2011, I guess, that I got there. Yeah.
So
and
were you and Haley Stiltner there together?
I think she graduated the year before I got there. She was still in town, so I knew her, but she wasn't in school. But she was one of the reasons I went. I saw some videos of her with the Bluegrass Pride Band on YouTube, and I said, I want to play like that. She was playing Pike County Breakdown faster than I'd heard anybody ever play.
Oh yeah,
and
no kidding.
that's that was really the reason I wanted to go, is I heard that and I said, I want to be able to do that. And the whole time I was there, I mean, I showed up and I couldn't even end a song. I didn't know a shave and a haircut. I didn't know any kickoffs. I did not know what I was getting myself into by going there. But
so who was your banjo teacher there?
Started out Brandon Green.
Okay.
Who's a great banjo player.
Yeah.
Not as well known as some, but amazing banjo player. And then Jason Davis after that.
Right.
He's in Dan Tominski's band now. He was with Junior Sisk.
Yeah, Jason's amazing. He's a great player.
He's one of my favorite banjo players. He's just, nobody can really drive like he does as far as I'm concerned. And I just spent all my time at ETSU just practicing and going to jams and playing in jams and just listening to jams. There's a lot of bluegrass around, so I saw a lot of concerts. I think I just spent every moment I could either in lessons or, all my friends who were, some of the people that show up there at 18 years old are already professional musicians and are really amazing. So I spent all my time just asking them, hey, how do you do that thing? And how do you do this? And can I get a video of you doing this? And what finger do you use for this? And what did Earl do here? And all that, I just tried to soak up as much as I could. Because I transferred from another school, I was only there for 3 years before I graduated, but that was probably the most intense, like, instrument learning experience I think I had. Just bluegrass 24 hours a day, basically, for 3 years.
When I in the late 80s, I looked at going to, of course, I already had my degree. I was looking at going back to college to work on a master's degree anyway. And I looked at the program in Levelland, Texas, of course, and at the time that was pretty much the only one that existed. So I actually looked at that going, I thought, yeah, I could do that, but I think it would just be mostly for fun and not for any, for money.
Yeah.
But so I didn't, but it would have been a neat thing. Joshua, Alan Mundy's program out there. Yeah, I looked at that one. Looked at it pretty hard, and I thought, I'm not moving to level in Texas. So
yeah.
Wow. Let's see. Somebody was asking about finding people to play with. Jody was probably the luckiest one, being close proximity to Everett's music barn. And so does Everett do they still do the thing down there, Jody?
They sure do. They do it every Saturday night.
And in Chattanooga area, there was still is the Signal Mountain Opry, where there's a pick and show and a jam, and then there's in Harrison, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga, there is the Snow Hill thing. They meet like twice a month, and so there's stuff around that I was able to find. Eli, what about you?
Yeah, well, when I first started playing, I was still up in here in Maine, and there's a couple jams around it at a couple local bars or that people put on. The probably the easiest way to find that kind of thing, if you just go on Google and just search the name of your state or your county or something and say Maine bluegrass jams, stuff's going to come up. Probably, I mean, it's almost everywhere. And, you might have to drive a little bit. Maybe it's a little further away than you'd like, but what's cool is once you go to some of those things, you don't have to wait. You can go to the jam that happens every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it is, because that's a great thing to do. But once you meet those people, you can play music with them whenever you want. So it's in some ways, those places where they do those regular jams are also just good places to meet the people that you could start a band with, or you could just say, hey, you want to come over once a week or something. You could book your schedule pretty solid if you're willing to get out there a little bit,
Another thing to look for, like for jams in your area, and this is a fairly new thing, look for song farmers. just you can go to the Song Farmers website, and it won't necessarily be a bluegrass jam. They're pretty much open to whoever and whatever kind of acoustic instrument. We've got a local Song Farmers group, and I go to one up in Tellico Plains occasionally. And find a Song Farmers group. They're great if you're just starting out, just trying to learn to jam, because I would call that a slow jam. There's nothing really fast. Most of them work from some sort of song sheet, so you got chord changes and all of that that's available to you. So find a Song Farmers group. If you can't find a traditional bluegrass jam, find a Song Farmers group. That's a good place. And I mean, it's definitely a no judgment zone too. You can go to those things, and you don't have to be good at all, and you'll be welcome at a Song Farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for people that are saying there are no jams in their area, I mean, some people have been saying they just can't find one. That's possible. It happens. You could start one. You can be the person that's on Facebook saying, "Hey, there's a jam coming up."
What he says,
you know.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. There's only one way that it happens, and somebody has to start it. So it could be you, and maybe nobody shows up the first time. I know you one person shows up the second time, but it's never gone any other way. So you might as well start it sometime.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, the lady that started our local Song Farmers group here, she was one of my ukulele students, and she's been playing maybe a little over a year at this point, and decided to go ahead and start the Song Farmers group. And, you know, because she wanted somebody to pick with. And so there's that. And so Song Farmers, I mean, if you want to start a jam, go to the Song Farmers website, and they have information on how to start all of that. They've got resources available for you. So that's cool. Pretty neat. And then you need confidence. Yes, you do. You just gotta just put on your big boy britches and go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And faking it works just about as well too.
That's me. A total fake. Total. Wait a minute. I saw one. Well, I lost it. Finger gymnastics for before you play the banjo. Anything? Do y'all do anything? Do you do any morning stretches? Do you warm up your hands? Y'all are both younger than me, so my hand. I will tell you, and I know there's some older people than me in the chat. I'll be 57 this year, and I do have some arthritis in my thumbs and in my fingers. So like the past 2 days, you know, I've just been miserable. I can still pick, but it's at a cost of a little bit of pain and a whole lot of speed. But it's so in the mornings, a lot of hot water, a lot of stretches, a lot of things just to get my fingers moving so that they're not stiff. I take glucosamine and, you know, and other things just to try to keep, you know, the omega-3s and all of those things for your joint health, and just to keep my fingers nimble as best I can. You know, I'm definitely not as fast as I used to be. It's just, but it's getting your fingers warmed up. And for me, you know, I spend a good bit of time warming up before I play. You know, if I'm going to go play a show somewhere, I'll get there early and spend 30 or 45 minutes just sitting and noodling with the banjo just to get warmed up.
Sure.
Do y'all do it? Jody, do you do anything, any kind of finger stuff?
Yeah, and I'll grab my banjo here so you can see. I mean, I actually have a video somewhere on my YouTube where I have like I guess 2 different things for each hand. My left hand, I just do like little 2-note exercises where I just go back and forth. And I may even do chromaticism or whatever just to get my fingers moving. And I don't even have to use this hand. I just, move it. And then, of course, with the right hand, I'll just muffle this part of the banjo so it doesn't make any sound, and I'll just do some rolls, just anything to get my fingers moving. So that's usually my routine, like before I go on stage or if I have to play somewhere, as I warm up my fingers. I have some older friends that unfortunately they've developed lots of hands and joint problems. And some of them have blatantly told me, they're like, the reason I think I'm suffering from this is because I used to play all this fast stuff and never warm up, back when I was 20, 30 years old or whatever. So I always try to warm up if I'm going to play. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
Do you do anything, Eli?
I usually will. It kind of depends what I'm going to be doing. Like if I'm playing a gig that I know is just straight Scruggs, whatever, I'll probably just take something like Fireball Mail or Cripple Creek or just some instrumental or something, and I'll just play it really slowly. And just gradually increase the speed just kind of over and over again until I've got it up to speed, just to see how fast I can get it, but starting really slow just to make sure I'm not rushing anything. And I find that if I do that, then it's all good. And I do a little bit of I'll stretch each joint just a little bit. Don't want to be too crazy about it because you can hurt yourself doing this as well.
Oh yeah.
But just a little bit of this just to kind of get the blood flowing and everything. And I've got like relatively bad circulation. So like, even if I'm not feeling cold, the tips of my fingers will be kind of cold and everything. Mm-hmm. So, like I wear extra layers, hands under hot water, stuff like that, just to get actually like circulation going and everything. But I've, if I'm doing something where I know I'm going to be playing some single string or some melodic stuff, or just something that's not quite just using the first two fingers on my left hand, then I'll kind of do something like what Jody described, some exercises that really do put me through my paces digit wise.
Nathan asked, how do you deal with nerves when playing in front of people?
Yeah, that's tough.
Any advice? What do y'all have anything in particular? I mean,
I've got a video kind of about this. It's just about getting ready for a gig in general, but a big part of that is like being nervous or whatever. And just the bullet points of that video are basically, I get more nervous if I'm not prepared usually. So if I learn all the stuff I'm supposed to play, then I'll be less nervous. There's actually a lot of things, okay, some of these are going to sound a little weird, but they all work for me. If I'm going to go play a show and I dress nicely, or I dress like I put on something that I think looks good or whatever, I feel a little more confident. I feel like I'm taking care of some stuff that needs to get taken care of. I'll be less nervous. If I eat food that doesn't make me feel terrible before I play, then I feel better when I'm on stage. You can eat what they give you backstage at a bluegrass festival, but that isn't always going to make you feel the best. So I'm kind of, it's great afterwards. Afterwards, I'll go crazy with the barbecue and everything. But I try to be careful. Yeah. So stuff like that. And then right before I go on stage, I do there's a couple little things, just taking deep breaths, and it doesn't have to be anything in particular, but I'll show you something that I do that actually works really well for me. And it's something people do. They just recommend people do this for general anxiety and all kinds of stuff. It's a simple exercise. All you have to do is breathe in for 4 counts and hold your breath for 4 counts. And then you breathe out for 4 counts and you hold your breath for 4 counts. So I'm going to look like an idiot, but I'll show you what I mean. All right. So it'll just be like this. Breathe in first. And you just do that for like a minute or two. And the reason that works, it's kind of magical, because if I tell you to calm down, there's no way it's going to do anything. You are not going to calm down. It's actually probably going to make it worse. But if you physically do something that alters the chemistry of what's going on in your body, then you don't have to decide to be less nervous. You can actually make your body less calm by doing the thing that makes your body more calm. You think you can convince yourself that it's not that big a deal and say, well, if I make a mistake, who cares? It's fine. But that doesn't really make you feel better all the time. But if you do a breathing exercise like that, or I don't know, something that takes your mind off it, you're going to forget to be nervous. And it doesn't work all the time, and it doesn't work for the entire gig. Like, you know, if I get up on stage and I kick off a song and it's great and I make a mistake, I might go back to square one. It's possible. But that is something that can make a huge difference. So it's worth thinking about. Basically, just everything that happens before you get on stage, are you leaving it up to chance, or are you doing something kind of intentional, I think?
All right.
Yeah. I think the thing that helped me most getting over being nervous on stage is, I started out, like I said, 8 months in, I was playing a contest, and I played contests every time there was one within driving distance. And so, one, you're on stage in front of people. Two, you're in front of people that are scrutinizing what you're playing. You know, you got judges, and there's nothing more nervous than that, you know? And so to go out and play just a regular concert or a regular show, I don't really get extremely nervous doing that anymore. You know, it's because that's way less stressful than playing the contest. Now, if I go and play a contest, yeah, I'm going to be nervous again. Or if I turn on the record button, then that's a good way to make, you know, to create new mistakes. Right. But as far as, you know, getting over that, yeah, the breathing thing really does work. Jody, what about you? Any
Yes. So sure. I mean, honestly, I felt like when I first started playing, I actually dealt with this a lot, which is kind of, you know, in particular with these contests, like you're talking about, I was just kind of so stressed out, you know, and I was up there and I had like the vibrato going on, my hands like shaking, and, you know, it's just awful. And I would say first and foremost, like just regularly exposing yourself to playing with other people on stage and doing it, you know, that helped a lot. But sometimes in these contests, I would have to just kind of psychologically give myself kind of a pep talk. And it kind of goes into what Eli was saying about being prepared. And the times that I was prepared the most, that was the times I was, of course, the most confident. And I would literally just kind of talk myself up, you know, create this kind of energy, like, you know, like somebody was going to go lift a heavy weight or something, same thing, you know, just kind of, you know, really talk yourself up. And I would have to do that in contests sometimes just to get myself in the zone. But another thing that helps me too is, and I've been fortunate to play with people that are a lot of fun, is having people in the band that help you relax. Like just, you know, it's just fun, and it's a lot of fun to be around them. And of course, I've unfortunately been in the other situation where the band is like scrutinizing you and like, oh, the banjo player just made a mistake. And then that can, of course, be stressful. But also surrounding yourself with, you know, people that are a lot of fun to be around, that make jokes and just kind of make it lighthearted is also a good thing. But yeah, certainly the breathing thing I've done, mentally just talking myself through things. And also another thing that sometimes helps is, you know, make your practicing resemble the performance as much as you can. That's another thing, you know, and kind of mentally put yourself there. Definitely.
I know I've definitely set up a microphone that wasn't plugged into anything just to practice stepping up to the mic and kicking something off. I've definitely done that. I still do that.
Sure.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yes.
Joshua says, just remember, if you make a mistake, do it twice and say you were channeling jazz. Don't be giving away free jazz advice. That's patented information. We can't be just giving that away for free.
Hey, Ray Bostic asked about what do we think about the summer music camps, like you know, banjo camp and Steve Kaufman camp and stuff like that. Y'all gone or done any of those?
I haven't been to camps, but I've done. I could do the Banjo Camp North, which is up in Massachusetts, and what's the other one? The Ashokan Center in New York has the Ashokan Bluegrass Week, and I do that one. It just makes me wish that I did it when I was, before I was, you know, I wish I had gone to stuff like that before. If you can, you know, if it's not too much of a financial burden and it's not too hard to get to, then it's a really cool way to meet a bunch of people that care about the thing that you care about. And, you know,
Yeah.
you kind of have to, a lot of those you choose where you go and what teachers you see and stuff. You should familiarize yourself with what the format of the camp is and see if that's going to work for you. Cause they're all a little different, but it's a fun place to, you know, I can at least speak to the fact that it's a fun place to hang out and talk to people about banjo, because there's no shortage of that for sure.
Let's see. What do you do when you don't feel like you're progressing quickly enough? Practice more. I don't know if there's a good answer to that. I mean, maybe try to figure out what, you know, if you feel like you're not progressing quickly enough, that's kind of vague. You know, decide what you want to progress at. Are you not progressing quickly enough as far as learning new tunes, or maybe you're not getting quick enough, or what? You know, be more precise with your practice, what you're working on, I guess. I don't know. Learning to read music. Should you learn to read music?
Depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, I learned to read very rudimentary music reading when I was in elementary school. You know, I learned Every Good Boy Does Fine and Face. And that was about it, and never had to apply it to anything until I was probably 30 years old. And I had a friend of mine approach me about playing music for a couple of musicals that he was doing. And it's like, oh, well, send me the music, hoping that he would send me some recorded music from these musicals or point me to it. Now, he sent me scores, actual sheet music. And I really wanted to do these shows, so I had to really give myself a crash course in reading music. And have I used it much since? No, not really. You know, like in the bluegrass world, that just never comes up. What about in Jody, in that High Lonesome Mass? Do you deal with written music there? Or?
That's kind of fortunate in that sometimes it can just be chord charts, but it has actually, they've actually tabbed some of it out, but there's another bluegrass mass where it's all kind of sheet music, if you will. And I had to go through and do fingerings, you know, because sometimes the computer puts fingerings that don't really exist, you know.
Right.
It's like this person didn't really play the banjo, so you have to go back and correct it. But no, in the High Lonesome Mass, it's a lot of just chord charts, and it has some suggested tab sometimes. Yep. But
Astro asks, would a front tooth gap like Earl increases beats per minute? Absolutely.
Definitely.
But I recommend to start with a small file. Don't try to get that gap too big to start with.
aerodynamics, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
But, yeah, they're talking. Yeah, there's a lot of banjo camps canceled right now because of the whole coronavirus, which is unfortunate. But you know, it's a thing we do. Favorite style to play? Y'all have a favorite style? Bluegrass. How about you, Jody?
Oh man, it just depends on you know, where I'm at. I can seriously get into some bluegrass, and then I can seriously get into some jazz. I just go through all sorts of phases. I mean, I can get into jazz, classical, or bluegrass off and on, or popular music too. I mean, I can just sit down and learn some popular tunes. So it all depends.
Yeah. I play Cat Joe. You know, I like old time stuff. I used to play quite a bit of old time banjo, which was at one point, like if I sat down at home just to relax, I would be playing old time banjo, maybe more than I would be playing bluegrass. But right now, if I sit down with a banjo, you know, I've usually got finger picks on, and so you know, I'm playing a lot more bluegrass these days than I am old time. But yeah, typically I'm playing bluegrass. I don't really have much of a jazz repertoire at all. I mean, I don't know any chords. So. We should pick Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Yeah, we should. Can we take a musical break? Well, okay, they want us to pick something. What are we going to pick? It would be neat. Let's think of a song and each render a break of that song, kind of
Okay.
as you would play it. You know, something short, something sweet,
Cool.
something I know. What could we do? Blue Ridge Cabin Home,
Okay.
standard bluegrass tune.
Yes,
My
sir.
quick and dirty break.
Yeah.
Next, Jody, you play it.
Okay.
You play it.
This is going to be, let's see here, the Earl Scruggs version. Is that right? Let's see here. Hopefully my sound is okay.
That's good. All right, Eli, it's you, man.
All right. Let me grab the banjo here.
You need a banjo.
All right. Might need to angle
Readjust.
this a little bit.
There you go.
Is that visible?
Yeah, what kind of banjo are you playing?
So this is a cool it's a cool banjo. It's a Huber, and it's one I'm borrowing from a great banjo player, Gabe Hirschfeld. I don't know if you guys know Gabe with Lonely Heart String Band.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. He's let me borrow this banjo. It was actually owned previously by Mike Kropp. You can see the block.
Oh,
has,
cool.
His name Mike Kropp, great banjo player that I never got a chance to meet. Unfortunately, passed away. But been borrowing this banjo. It's a cool Huber banjo. It's got a slightly radiused fretboard, which I haven't played much before, which is pretty cool to experiment with. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's got the crow spacing, which I'm also not used to. So that's been an interesting thing to get used to as well. I'll give you the crow version on the crow spacing banjo.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what spacing I'm using. I think it's just standard spacing on this one. I use a crow spacing on my climber banjo though. It just a little more room.
Yeah. I like it. I think I'm going to make the switch because I actually am enjoying it lately.
Yeah. Somebody said clinch mountain back step.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Bowtie's going to rat you out, Eli. So JD's break.
That doesn't count as stealing if I messed it up.
Cool. Oh me. Let's see. Yeah. Wash hands. Yeah, time to wash hands.
Sanitize your strings.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sleepy Eye John. Yeah, Severn, how's Sleepy Eye John coming for you? I saw your video of that. Yeah, Jody, yeah, play your Romero, Jody.
Oh, okay.
Something without finger picks.
Oh boy, I just about chopped my fingernails off, so I don't know if that's going to go too well. I don't know. What should I play? I'm trying to think of something. Oh boy, I don't know.
Play us a video game. There you go. Nice.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's an old song. That's from like 1876. Been around a while. Uh-oh. Throwing picks on the floor. Do y'all use D-tuners?
I don't. No.
I not on this banjo. Yeah, I have in the past, but you know.
I tried them a few times and failed, so I gave up. Yeah. Nice.
So the Buck Trent version.
That's cool. That's great.
I heard of Jim. I don't know if this is just random. Have you ever heard of this is back when I was a kid. Ever heard of a group called the Dixie Flyers by any chance? I think they were actually from Canada or somewhere up there or somewhere. But they did an incredible version of that with the D-tuners, and I just always remember that version. I've never been able to find a recording. It was great.
You know, the one I learned was off the Homer and the Barnstormers album.
Oh, yeah.
And which was Buck Trent playing on that cut.
Hmm.
Can I can any of us play the Entertainer? Did any of y'all ever fool with that?
No, sorry.
Yeah, me either. Is Jim different finger picks? Yeah, my finger picks are different. I'm using the Ernie Ball picky picks. These are. This is a sure case of do as I say, not as I do. I use these simply because I stepped on my good picks when I was younger, and the only other picks I had in the case were these Ernie Ball picks, and I got used to using these, and now everything else just feels really weird. What kind of picks do y'all use? I don't.
I use the Sheeler finger picks, the Sammy Sheeler ones. They're
the stainless ones, yeah.
Stainless ones, yeah, they're nice. A little expensive. They're something like $30-$40 or something like that, but they don't, as far as I'm concerned, they don't break, they don't wear, they don't, like, they're kind of good to go. Unless you're playing really hard, you're not going to damage them. So in that way, it's worth it to me for the money. And since they're stainless steel, they just slide off the string. It's easy to play with. But
I've tried the Scheller picks, and if I went to something other than the Ernie Balls, I would definitely go with the Schellers because I felt like I could. They didn't feel as clunky as like the Nationals. What are you using, Jody?
I use just the good old Dunlops, the cheapest, easily available things. There are .0225s, but one thing that I started doing just this year is I've got one of my picks. You can't see it today because I don't know where it's at, but one of them I use as a brass finger pick, actually. So I'm using one brass and one nickel, I guess is what this is. But yeah, I used to use the Showcase 41s, and I love those, but I'm bad about misplacing my picks, man. And so I just get the cheapest option I have, the one that I can get the easiest, and that's what I use.
Yeah. Well, that's what I use. Jerry Douglas uses a brass pick and a nickel pick, which is really strange. Talk a bit more about playing without picks. Jody's the one that plays more without picks than I think Eli or I.
I mean, I would. I spend a lot of time actually playing the banjo without my picks, and I have to be careful because if I spend a lot of time playing without picks and then I go to playing with the picks, it's kind of a mess. So I have to make sure that I balance those out. But a lot of it comes from playing. I play a lot of cocktail hours on the jazz guitar, and I use my bare fingers. So there's not a whole lot of difference here between this banjo and my guitar. So I do that to kind of just soften up the sound. And one of the reasons I started doing that was I was singing on gigs, like just doing solo gigs where I was singing. And I found that the banjo could overpower my vocals and my sound a lot. So I started playing, this banjo plus without the picks to just kind of mellow it out on these background gigs, so to speak. But as far as the approach goes, I would say that I probably slant my hand a little more this way to get a little fatter tone, as opposed to more like the J.D. Crowe kind of bent wrist the other way. So, yeah. Never lose my fingers. Yes, you lose the finger picks, but never lose your fingers.
Right.
Yeah, what about thumb pick? What thumb pick do you guys use?
I use the Blue Chip J.D. Crowe. Actually, so Matt at Blue Chip gave me, back when he first started making the thumb picks, he gave me one of the first ones that he did to try. And it was a little different shape. And man, I loved it. And I dropped it we were playing a show with the Ramblers, and I dropped it behind the stage in some grass that had not been mowed in forever, and could not find it. And Roy, the guitar player, he went back the next day with a metal detector looking for it, and did not find it. And so I replaced it with the J.D. Crowe Blue Chip, and that's what I use. And I've had this for several years. And yeah, they're $40, but I was going through a plastic thumb pick like once a month. So they're at $2 a pop for a thumb pick. A couple of years, it's definitely paid for itself. So that's the only thumb pick that I can still use the plastic ones, but man, I really like the Blue Chip. And because the material just really does seem to just last and last. What do you use, Eli?
I use the yellow Dunlop ones. They call it Altex.
Oh yeah.
I used a Blue Chip for a bunch of years, and they're great. For whatever reason, I ended up liking this more for some reason. But other plastic ones I don't seem to like that much. This gives you a really strong fourth string. The Ultex is pretty bright too, isn't it? Yeah, it's very bright. Yeah, I would say it definitely works well for a certain kind of bluegrass banjo playing, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to work great for a wide range of sounds. So
what do you use, Jody?
I use these Herco blue. They're kind of
the blue. Yes.
I don't think it's a very popular pick these days. I don't see too many people
used to be.
Them. It used to be popular, but some old guy turned me. I was at Everett's one night, and he was listening at me play, and he's like, "Here, I'll give you this thing." And I'll be honest, it's from a tonal perspective, it's not my favorite pick from a tonal perspective, but they don't break. I mean, I've never had one of these things break, and they're good for single string, which of course I do a lot of. I really like the Planet Wave stump picks too, but they're also kind of big and a little clunky, and I've had them break. So I stuck with this because I can keep them for 20 years and they don't break.
Yeah, right.
You know,
They wear pretty good too. I used to use one of those.
I think James McKinney was one of the only few people I've seen use them. I think he's one of the other people I've seen use them.
I've seen a lot of Stanley style guys, like real hardcore Stanley style. I don't know if there's some connection there, if Ralph ever used it or something, but for some reason that's where I've seen most of those. Yeah, it's interesting. Or I think so. They're blue. I assume it's the same thing, you know.
Easy to find when you drop them, I guess, too.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I kind of, one of the other reasons I like the blue chip is the metal band. Because when I was using the celluloid picks, I'd have like 3 of them stuck on my brackets here. Because if I'm playing outside in the summer, they get loose. And so I'd have to change them out so that it would constantly be tied on my thumb. And so the metal one doesn't get loose. And that's the only reason I do the metal one. But, but that Ultex doesn't really get loose like the celluloid.
No, the Ultex doesn't seem to, they don't get loose. I do have to go through them probably once every couple of weeks because I'll wear down the actual blade of it, that works. But they're pretty cheap. They're maybe $5 for 5 of them or 10 of them or something. So it's not too expensive, but that is nice that they don't stretch out. So that was that's a big reason why I played with the blue chip for a while, was because it was the only thing that would really stay on my thumb at a festival or if it was hot out or something like that. Because I had some bad moments on stage where, the thumb pick all of a sudden just goes sideways and there's nothing you can do. So that made a huge difference.
And those picks, like the plastic, I know a lot of my students, they deal with it. They'll pop, they'll pop the 4-string if you get that space in there.
Yeah.
So that's the other aggravating thing about plastic picks.
Yep.
String gauges. What string gauges do y'all use? Somebody was asking.
I think I've got a set of them right here. I use, I wonder if this will even focus on the 9.5, 11, 12, 20, 9.5. It's the JD Crow set from GHS.
I used to use that set. What do you use, Jody?
That I'll use.
Oh man, gosh, I wish I could. I have used that same exact set on my Gibson, and that's normally what I do use. But this last set I put on there are those Diodario XL New York strings or something. I can't remember the name of them.
Yeah.
On the Ramiro, I have to run heavier strings because it's a small scale, and that second string, if I don't put a heavier string on it, it won't. The intonation is not very good. So I use a little bit heavier strings on the Ramiro. So probably I think a 10 and a half on those. So those are Diodarios on there right now. But yeah, I've definitely used the GHS as well.
Yeah, I use on this banjo. I use just the Dario light gauge set. I don't even know what the J60s, is that what they are? I don't know. I don't even know what the string model is, but it's just a standard like 9, 11, 12, 20 something. I don't know, but it's just a standard light. Now on my RK35 that somebody asked about, I use a 9.5 set on it because it's standard scale. So this is a little longer scale, so the lighter string just feels better. But anybody ever here use the Zuki picks? I never used them. I pick pretty flat anyway. If you have a problem, like if you're using a regular thumb pick and you're really striking it at an odd angle, my advice is just stop hitting it at a weird angle. Try to hit, a little flatter on your pick. But if all else fails, then maybe the Zuki that has the little bit of an angle to it could help. So I'm just always afraid if you get into an odd pick like that, that's not something that's somewhat normal. If you need one in a hurry, you might not have what you need. You wind up like me having to buy picks and gross so you can have the weird picky picks instead of something that you could go to any music store or pawn shop and buy some Dunlops like Jody can do. Tommy, thanks for coming in, man. We appreciate you. Let's see. Keep both the finger and thumb picks flat on the string. Yeah, I try to. My fingers hit at a little bit of an angle according to the wear on these Ernie Ball picks. But yeah, try to hit them as straight as possible. I think you're just going to get your best tone that way. First string is close to being over the neck and the bottom of the neck. Is this normal or your bridge? Banjo man, your bridge could be, your tailpiece could be in the wrong place. Your bridge could be in the wrong place. You know, your neck could be in the wrong place. It depends on your banjo. I mean, you really want to eyeball it and make sure everything's straight. But yeah, your first string shouldn't really be hanging off or too terribly close to the edge of the neck. So Josh, really, Banjo Ben is now selling the picky picks individually because of me. Well, good for him. Rick, the picky picks look like they look like that. If that'll focus, they're from Ernie Ball, and they got a pointy tip on them. So they're definitely different. I've even taken other picks and ground them down to have a point. And if you'll look at the, I think it's the Foggy Mountain Banjo album, you know, there's the drawing of Earl. And I think it looks like the picks he's got on his fingers look like these. They come to a point. So I don't know if that was an artist interpretation or maybe Earl at some point experimented with some pointy picks. Who knows? He probably just wore them to a point.
Right.
I'm a pedal steel player, but use no picks. Learning banjo, and you do use picks. You know, if you're going to play bluegrass and you're going to play in a bluegrass band, man, you just got to put on the picks. I really feel like that's the best solution. And I think we just lost Jody.
Uh-oh, lost one.
Bye, Jody. He'll be back, I hope. I have to watch for him. Let's see, other questions. How do you get a brighter sound? That's another thing. It could be setup of your banjo. It could be how you're striking the strings. If you will hit your strings more squarely, more straight on, it'll be a little brighter. If you are playing, so your banjo, let me tilt down here. You've got, you know, in Earl's book, in other books, he talks about this X and Y position. So if your hand is closer to the bridge, you get a little brighter sound than you do up here next to the neck. So experiment with that. Ralph Stanley plays really close to the bridge, whereas doesn't sound quite as good. So maybe that. Other things where you sound might be muffled. Your head may be too loose, so you might need to tighten your head. Your tailpiece may be too high, and so you could like lower the tailpiece a little bit. I mean, there's a ton of things that could be making your sound a little muffled. Let's see. Can you talk about the right hand placement? Well, yeah, we just kind of did. But you know, well, you can, all right, you see the wear pattern on my banjo head. That's where my right hand goes, you know? So obviously I'm spending more time down here, but as I'm playing back up, you know, of course now I have this head will get more wear on it, but you know, depending on what you're after. I mean, if you're after a particular, if you're after your lead break, but if I'm playing backup, then I'm going to move my hand. So as I travel up the neck, I move my hand closer to the neck. One of the things I talk about with students is little kids, when you hand them something, they'll reach with both hands and both hands go in and both hands go out. And so you kind of need to channel that as this hand goes this way, this hand generally comes this way. As you go up the neck, they're going to come together. So, but hand position, the other thing with your hand, you know, and again, there's a lot of right ways. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking about arching your wrist more, and I really don't do that. I don't. Let's see. So my wrist is fairly flat. But some people have a lot more arch. It's just kind of what works for you. Maybe try not to put your palm on that banjo head. But there was a guy that was local here, Sand Mountain, William Howe, great banjo player, and he had a really odd right hand posture, but man, he was an amazing player. And so I don't know what the right answer was for if that was the right answer for him, but hand position, find something that's comfortable, something that's fairly relaxed. Watch our heroes put their hands on their banjo. Watch Earl play. And then you can watch JD play, who's got a really odd looking hand position. I don't know if JD's a good one to model a hand position after, but what do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially with JD, it's tough because it's you'd never really recommend that somebody do that necessarily. It's kind of taking a risk with the health of your wrist. You could really.
Yeah.
But one thing is, if you watch JD, you can definitely tell he's not playing with a lot of tension. So the only way you get away with it is by being pretty relaxed, and it's probably just that's a big part of it. It's a little bit the same thing as what fingers you're planning on the head of the banjo. I mean, watch some people that you really like their playing and see if you can emulate it a little bit, and then adjust for what works for you. I think you'll never get exactly what everybody else does. No one has exactly what Earl has, or anyone else for that matter. So shoot for the people that we admire the most, but adjust it for whatever your own hand can accommodate best. I think it's going to take some trial and error, I think, and listen to the sound of what happens when you put your hand in a certain place. I mean, at a certain point, if you try something new, if you try a new hand position, it might not sound as good, but if you stick with it, if you see some improvement, then that's a good sign. But if you make your hand look exactly like JD Crow, which wouldn't that be great if we could all do that, and it sounds terrible, then don't do it. It's not in your best interest. We didn't get into this because we want to look like JD Crow.
Well, you didn't. Some of us.
Yeah. but make sure you're listening to what happens when you practice. If you're not listening to yourself, then you're not even at that point. You're not even trying to answer your own question. You're just kind of, I don't know what you're doing at that point. So make sure you're listening.
Yeah. And I think part of JD Crow's hand posture, and I know this from myself and looking at old pictures of me playing, was back in the 70s and early 80s, I wore my strap on my right shoulder instead of my left. And so if you have your strap on your right shoulder, your whole posture changes. I mean, because one, you got to hold your shoulder up, and then that changes everything. And like Kenny Ingram still plays, when you see, I mean, you can show me a silhouette of Kenny Ingram playing, and I know it's him because that shoulder's up. And so, and anybody that plays with their strap on their right shoulder, you'll see that posture, and it changes their right hand position as well. And then sometime and I wore my strap on my right shoulder up until probably 1990, 91. And then I switched. So, I mean, I switched to my left shoulder sometime in the early 90s, just based on, well, one, comfort primarily. So did y'all ever experiment with either shoulder?
I just did the regular way,
Yeah, always the regular way for me too.
Earl did that for a reason, and we all copied Earl, but the reason Earl did it is so he could play the guitar without, he could take his banjo off and pick up a guitar without having to take off his hat.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's it's an interesting thing, like especially with the JD Crow hand position stuff. If you listen to the people that do the best job emulating what JD Crow did, like Ron Stewart or some of those people, you know, their hand isn't in that position. You know, it's
Right.
not necessarily that's going to get you that sound. And you know, so again, yeah, just be listening to what it is that you're doing. But you know, there's so many factors also. Yeah, like you said with the banjo strap. Also, you know, depending on how you bend your picks, that's gonna,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
if you want to play like Earl, but you have your hand exactly like Earl, but then you use picks that are bent in a really different way, you're going to hit the string different. It's almost to the point where there's too many factors to actually control all of it. I mean, you can change everything you want, but it's really hard to dial in every little bit. And then even after that, you actually have to play like that person. So it's, you know, there's a lot of tweaking involved, but it's hard to say which one thing is going to do it for you. You know, it's you got to mess with every little piece of it here and there and see what you like.
Yeah. Yeah. There's way too much to obsess over when you could actually be practicing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine had bought, he was really into Van Halen. And so he bought all of this Van Halen gear. And oddly enough, he never sounded like Van Halen. And another story I tell, I was at a guitar show in Atlanta, a vintage guitar show. And I heard this guy playing down the hall and saying, man, he sounds like Steve Morse. That's got to be Steve Morse. And I walked down the hall and it was Steve Morse. And he was playing a Dan Electro guitar through a little tiny Fender practice amp, but sounded just like him. And so the reality is I can play Earl Scruggs' banjo and I still sound like me. And there's a video somewhere if you can find it. I've got it on VHS tape, and it's that old, but it's a video of Tony Trischka and Bela Fleck both playing Bela's banjo. And they're, you know, and Tony's reaching around Bela and Bela's playing and Tony's playing, and they both get such different tones because they're different hands on the same instrument. And it's, you know, you hear Tony play and it sounds just like Tony's tone, and Bela plays the banjo, and it's, you know, it's the Bela sound that you're so familiar hearing. And so, yeah, a different set of hands makes a totally different sound.
Totally.
Truth is in the fingers. Yes, it is. The gear doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You know, I've got a recording that I did with a group, and I play 3 different banjos on the recording. I play my Price, which is a flathead. I play my Stelling, which is an arch top. And then I had just got my Neckville at the time, and I played it, which is a totally different animal. And I can't tell them apart on the recording because they all sound like me. You know, I know which one's the Stelling because I remember specifically, you know, using it, but no one else does, you know, and it's an arch top, but they all sound like me on the recording. So yeah, it's all in the picker's hands. You can't buy tone. All right, guys. Any more questions? We've been at this almost 2 hours. I think we got it.
Did we solve all of the banjo mysteries?
What can cause a buzz? God, everything can cause a buzz. From a loose screw to a loose nut on one of your tuners. You could have a string that's buzzing in your bridge slot. You could have a string that's buzzing in the nut slot. It could be touching a fret. Your tailpiece could be buzzing. One of the coordinator rods in your banjo could be ringing sympathetically with a note. I've had that happen. Just start experimenting, trying to eliminate things that it could possibly be. It's real easy to eliminate the nuts rattling. Just peck around on your headstock. If there's a nut up there that's loose, you'll find it. Run your fingers around your brackets. See if any of those are loose. You can find those. Your armrest could be loose. Anything that's obviously could be loose, eliminate those. Then think about, okay, where's this buzz? If it's still buzzing, then you can eliminate the nut really quick. Fret a string. If the buzz goes away, good chance it's in the nut. If it continues to buzz, you know, all the way up the neck, there's a good chance it's in the bridge. I mean, it could be there's just any number of things that can buzz. I've, just good luck finding it.
I used to do this where I would play and I'd take my hand and just like move around the banjo and grab parts to see if I would stop,
Yep.
So.
Joshua, thank you for the comment on my tempos and being a metronome. I credit a lot of the timing to just playing a lot with recordings. I learned by playing with recordings and just getting the tune in my head and just trying to hold the tempo straight. And then of course, playing with other people, that helps too. I can honestly say that I have spent in my entire life less than probably 30 minutes working with a metronome. I just don't do it. Do y'all work with a metronome, Jody? Do you?
I do for certain things. It's not something that I adamantly do. I know there's a lot of people that do and advocate that. I grew up just playing with recordings and playing with other people. But one of the things I do though, like if I know I'm going to go into to record, like play on an album or something, is I will sit around and play with the metronome that week and really just refine my timing with that, because I know I'm going to be quote maybe.
Yeah, I think Jody's paused. Eli, what about you?
Did we lose him? Yeah, I use a metronome pretty regularly. If I'm learning something, it just mostly just kind of keeps me honest. If I'm practicing something, just keeps me, lets me know if my attention is drifting and I'm kind of not paying attention to what I'm doing, then I'll know pretty quick because I'm no longer with the metronome. But yeah, I use it pretty much every day for something that I'm doing. Who knows, if it's a song that I'm learning or just playing rolls along with a metronome as a warm-up or whatever. I do that a lot. Probably though, I split my time with a metronome and playing with the recordings in terms of working on timing related stuff. I mean, the metronome is really good for getting like really in the nitty gritty of like, what note am I playing in the wrong time or something, like what note is out of place or what. That's great. But in terms of also getting it to feel like bluegrass, I find playing along with recordings helps because here's the challenge. You can play, if you play perfectly in time, which I've never done and never will do, and no one's ever really done, but if I play everything very evenly, which is what a metronome might convince you to do, play very evenly, it might be hard to play along with a bluegrass band because the timing of bluegrass is not exactly evenly spaced. It's in time,
but it ebbs and flows.
It ebbs and flows. Yeah, exactly. So over the course of the song, it might ebb and flow. And also in the space of one measure, you might have certain notes that are longer or shorter just because that's, if you listen to J.D. Crowe, it swings a little bit for that reason. So I like to use a metronome because I like to have, I like to be able to choose what my timing is going to be like. I like to have some sort of thing where I can say, I want it to be a little straighter here, or I want it to be, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But at the end of the day, the thing that's made my playing probably feel best, maybe not has made my timing most even, but the thing that's made my playing actually feel the best is playing along with recordings of, Bluegrass Album Band or Flat and Scruggs or all that stuff,
Yeah. Because like, and I've seen studies or little posts about, tempos with Flat and Scruggs, and of course, all of, even Foggy Mountain Banjo album and all of this Flat and Scruggs stuff, it was recorded and they're all standing around a microphone at Columbia Studios recording this stuff live right now. Everybody's playing together. And so like when Earl would take a break, it speeds up. And then when Lester come back in and sing, the tempo slows down. And then Paul Warren plays the fiddle and it speeds up and then it slows back down. And being able to be in tune to that, to be able to speed up and slow down and ebb and flow with the music really helps. One of the things that we discovered when I was a kid with my first little band is we tended to do that, but it was only on the speed up. It was a constant, we're going up And then by the end of the song, it would be a little faster, or sometimes a lot faster than we started. But that's just a natural thing. And you kind of learn to hold it still.
Mm-hmm.
Are recordings today digitized? Yeah, most everybody's using digital recording these days. I like the album I did with the Ramblers, it was all digital, and we went in and we tracked it all with the group, and just put down just the music part, and then with some breaks, but then came back in and put our breaks in later, and then the vocals in last. But you could go in and fix stuff. And there's this one part on the recording where my banjo was out of tune, but you don't notice it until the very last note that I play. And it got out of tune somewhere during the recording. And so the last note that I played in this break was out of tune. And I thought, Brent Truitt was producing it. And so I said, hey, Brent, let me go back and fix that. He says, I've already fixed it. I said, what do you mean you've already fixed it? He says, well, you played that note earlier, so I just copied and pasted that note in for you. It's like, okay, whatever. So yeah, it's just about everything is pretty much everything digital. Banjo man, how many instruments do I know how to play? Oh gosh, I don't know. Barely the banjo, a little bit of guitar. I play ukulele quite a bit, just based on the number of ukulele students that I've had over the past few years. I play pretty much. I will attempt anything with strings. I'm not necessarily, ready for prime time on pretty much any of those. What else do you play, Eli?
Guitar, and some bass. I guess I can hack away at a bass in a bluegrass jam or something, and a little bit of trumpet, but that's about it. Nothing really other than that.
Oh, Dave Seal posted that his wife Heather says that his mandolin playing is getting better. Dave was one of my mandolin students, so that's good to hear, Dave. I'm glad you're still picking. Tell Heather hello. That's a tongue twister for me. Let's see. Yeah, the recordings today are still real, but the difference is when Flatt and Scruggs cut, a song, that was the cut. And, they didn't go back in and fix the banjo part, and Paul Warren couldn't go back in and fix the fiddle part. It was what it was right then. So that speaks to the skill of those musicians. I think the only other album that I know that was probably recorded like that to a certain extent in modern history, and it's not really that modern, was that first bluegrass album Band recording. Mm-hmm. Was recorded like that. It was just recorded, and it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. That tells you what kind of musicians Flatt and Scruggs was, and bluegrass album Band, those guys are, to be able to go in and cut a song and everybody nail every break, and the vocals are nailed perfect and all of that, man. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Because even at my best, like I'm still not going to nail every piece of a 3-minute song. There's going to be a screw up somewhere.
Yeah, I can't even imagine being able to do that, but something to aspire to, I guess. I know the Earls of Leicester mostly do their stuff that way still.
Yeah,
they've got a couple things where they'll go in and fix a note here or there once in a while. I've heard them say, but for the most part, I think it's all tracked that way. And they say they go through, those are the absolute best in that field, and they do 40, 50 takes or something at least.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's hard to do. It's hard to do things. Well, you guys know, making videos and stuff. I know for myself, it doesn't matter how easy the thing I'm playing for a video is. I'm going to do a lot of takes because it's not easy to be on the spot. It could be, if it's a simple example, I'm still going to do it a couple times just to make sure it's exactly what I want or something. And then when it's something that is kind of difficult, I've spent a lot of time on one video that I just want to play something the right way, and it it's not right. So I just over and over again, I've had to come back to something the next day just to get it right.
I think a lot of it's just catching the energy too. Like after you do so many takes, you start to like wonder, is it getting worse or is it getting better?
Oh yeah.
You have to get like fresh ears sometimes too, but yeah, certainly. Lots of takes.
Yeah, I've done that so many times with these videos. It's like, okay. And see, like for me, I'll create this arrangement in my head that I'm going to teach on the video. And then it'll be like, I can't even play my own arrangement. It's like, why do I keep changing this arrangement? It's like, that's not what I showed them in the video. I got to play it like this. And then sometimes I'll actually just play a break and then teach the break. But most of the time I've got a plan, and then I have to force myself to play that arrangement, which pretty fluid about, what I'm going to play or how I'm going to play, but it gets weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Making mistakes makes for better practice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sure. If you, it's kind of like when you're in school, the things that I remember the best are the things that I screwed up, or there's the questions that I missed that I should have known. So, yeah. All right. Well, folks, we've had a couple of glitches, but I think this worked pretty well. Y'all want to play them a song before we get out of here?
What should we play at the end here?
I don't know. Song of your choice.
Oh.
I'll play it a Monroe. It's not a tune, it's a song, but it's called "Goodbye, Old Pal."
Yeah, play. Oh, I love that. That's got a good lick in it too.
It's a good tune. Yeah, I don't know what version is going to come out, but it'll be.
Let's hear it.
It'll be the version of the day, I guess.
I love that lick.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
I love that lick. I love that lick. Jody, what do you got?
Oh man, I don't know. Can't think of anything. I don't know. Jim, you got a request?
A request?
Yeah, anybody got a request? I don't know. Since we're doing.
That's a good one.
That's a great one.
Let's see. And my fingers today.
Love that one. That's a great tune.
Silver Eagle, rocking across the country. Scruggs Review. All right, folks. Bob asked Jody, what was that last song?
Theme time.
Theme time.
Yep.
All right, folks. Well, there we go. Thanks for coming out. We've had good attendance this whole time. I don't know what our max was. I'll be able to know that later, but it was over 200 at one point. We've still got 137 here, so that's pretty dadgum amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Y'all be sure, those of you that's left, and be sure to subscribe to Jody and Eli's channel. They got lots of good stuff out there, and I appreciate them letting me host this thing here. And maybe next time, I hope we can do it the other way, and I can be a guest. But man, it's been great having you two guys. Oh, there they are on my channel. So this has been a blast. So y'all do be sure to subscribe to Jody and Eli and interact with their stuff. Don't just be the subscriber. Actually comment and post and give some likes. Both have Patreons too. So look them up. I'm sure if you go to their websites and they have a Patreon. So be sure to visit those, because they could use some dollars.
We are banjo players after all.
That's right.
I can change my strings more often than every 6 months.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, folks. Well, we're about to end the broadcast here, so thanks for coming, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.
See y'all, folks.
Yes, thank you.